Kyle, you want to start us off with the big guy in Purdue?
Yeah, this is a guy we talked about. He came back to school. You and I remember the conversation sort of vividly that we had about him a year ago. Do you remember what we said? I kind of do, but Zach Edey, everybody knows who it is. Zach Edey.
I don't.
You know?
I don't remember. Please remind me.
Kevin talks so much that it just kind of flies into the ether. I understand. You talk a lot. Yeah, so I have that. I asked Russillo one time about a comment he made the day before, and he couldn't remember it. I was like, yeah, when you talk as much as we do, it can happen. But yeah, Zach Edey, everybody is familiar with him. Probably going to be the repeat player of the year. 7'4". I think he's like 7'3 and a quarter, barefoot. He's a big guy, a big dominant guy. So the best place to start with Edey, I think, would be just to sort of like think about where I was a year ago to where I am now. Have we made progress? I would say for me, and I'll bounce this to you immediately. For me, a year ago, I was skeptical about Edey defensively. I was skeptical about his sort of like how dynamic he could be as an offensive player in the NBA game. In a year's time, I have moved a little bit. I mean, where are you from? I've come to a more positive place, I would say, even in the last month with Edey about what I think he could be. Have you moved at all with Edey in that time?
Well, I mean, I think that nothing's changed in one sense. Fit will matter a lot with him. I mean, he's 7'3", 7'11" wingspan. He's more mobile than he used to be, but he's not the most mobile guy. It's not like you're going to be playing a switch defense when he's involved in a pick and roll. You're still going to be dropping him, playing him perhaps up the touch around the free throw line if he is playing pick and roll defense. But ultimately, you still want to have him paired with other long arm defenders, another big, like, to me, the best fit for Edey is San Antonio with Wemby or Oklahoma City with Chet. Having a versatile big next to him that can also help protect the rim and can space the floor offensively as well. While Edey, there'd be less pressure on him to have to develop a three-pointer. We saw him take 1-3 this year. When he's playing for Team Canada, he's done more screen and roll stuff rather than post-ups. So I think with him over the past year, whether it was playing with Canada, when he was playing under Nick Nurse, or whether it's the way he's progressed this year with Purdue, he's made improvements in the way that teams have had concerns. But on top of that, though, Kyle, we're talking about some of the deficiencies that he may or may not have at the next level. The fact is that the dude he's just big. Like, he's just big. And so, like, the way he's able to score with his touch and skill and size at the rim, that alone can provide some value. He's not Boban. He's not Taco Fall. He's a skilled 7'3" guy that can add value for 15, 20 minutes per game at a minimum, in my opinion. Like, I think he's safe in that sense. It's just a matter of how high of an investment do you want to make in him? Jonathan Givony over at ESPN with Draft Express, DX has him in the lottery right now, as far as I know. I mean, other than some analytics models, not many draft evaluators have him in the lottery right now. I still have him in the late teens, early 20s at this point. I'm very open-minded to moving him up. Do you think he is a deserving lottery guy? Or do you still view him as kind of that late first-round flyer type of prospect with the way he's progressed this year?
I think you hit on it, that it's the fit and the situation are going to matter. And I think based on who is there is going to dictate whether that happens or not. Because I don't think that he's like you take him regardless kind of a thing. Like, and I think what you said about fit and situation, I think we should just talk about specifically what we mean by that. I'm curious with Wemby, my eyebrows went up with that one just because I'm like, do you think that, like, with the growth that we've seen from Wemby lately, which has been really sort of a direct response, we saw what even like a shaky supposed 3-point shooter like Collins being in there in the way did to what the Spurs were trying to do. I don't know if they improve the passing and improve their roster, it could like lighten some of the pressure on that. I don't know about his fit next to Wemby. I'm more skeptical about that.
Here's the difference, Kyle. Zach Collins stinks. Zach
Edey. but Edey is going to be way more in the way and not even able to move and cut it to the speed that they would need him to. I don't even think it's perhaps. I think it's a definite.
But he's a better interior guy. At the least, maybe as a 15, 20 minute pairing, not the whole game necessarily, or 10 minutes they overlap, something like that.
I could see some overlap, maybe. I'm skeptical of that one. The Chet thing is interesting too, but I think what we're kind of circling, we could go down the list all day about the fit, this and that. We'll talk more about that, I'm sure, as the draft comes up and we see the order. I mean, the order is going to really make a lot of this stuff fall into place, I think. But yeah, I mean, next to Chet, he seems like what we've described for OKC. He makes sense. We keep talking about how they need a big like that, but it is interesting to me. I guess it sort of transitions into, I don't know how far and how detailed you want to go into this. What do we see him being like? So, I mean, he's been very specifically like, he's at 32.5% usage and at 65% true shooting last year. And this year he's at 32.5 and 67.5. So he's been very consistent. But like I said last year, I remember the one thing that I said was that his offense is very, one track. I mean, he's gotten a little bit better about passing out of the post. I think he's not like the most dynamic passer. He's not super creative. A lot of his turnovers come when he's like kind of getting tangled and he tries to he's not like a manipulative passer, I wouldn't say. But if he's very simple about like, I'm going to get to my left shoulder and make this baby hook, which he has done more than anything else in college. And he's like, the moment the help comes, I'm going to just throw that like boomerang right back to you pass. He creates open shots for Purdue. I mean, it's a very simple model for them. I know they have a complex offense, but I don't know. Do you think that is something that is going to translate to the NBA really well? I guess that's kind of the question when the speed of the defense and the length of the defenders pick up.
I mean, I think with Edey, this is an opportunity for him to show it. With Purdue, they were one and done twice in the tournament. Now they've reached the Sweet 16 for the second time. They have a game against Gonzaga on Friday. And if they end up winning that game and they go to an Elite Eight, maybe they face Creighton in the Elite Eight. And Creighton with Shireman and Kalkbrenner, their center, Trey Alexander, they have a bunch of guys that he's going to have to defend in space. And those are the types of games that Edey is going to have to prove himself that he can survive and continue to flourish for Purdue and bring them to a Final Four. And I think one of the centers that I want to talk about, Donovan Clingan from UConn, he's their sophomore center. He is 2 years younger than Edey. Typically, I think he's ranked higher than Edey on nearly all boards, public boards with draft evaluators. Clingan, in the opening 2 rounds, he had just unbelievable defensive performances. 7'2", 265 pounds, looking mobile, hedging on the perimeter, playing up the touch around the free throw line, drop coverage, help coverage, blocking shots with his left hand and his right hand. Clingan is more of that typical center you see teams look for in today's NBA, with the versatility on defense, the rim protection, the size, and the rim running on offense, screen and roll finish at the rim, whereas Edey is more of that post player, and it's more of a theoretical fit for him, adjusting to a lesser offensive role in the NBA. Clingan feels like the guy who's just going to copy and paste what he does at UConn for whatever team that drafts him. Like, he just feels like the easier fit. So for anybody who's tuning in to watch the 1 seed UConn, they've been dominant thus far in the tournament. They have a game against San Diego State on Thursday. Clingan, it's like you're looking at what you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, I guess let's talk about just quickly. I was going to say, I agree with you. His mobility sort of like laterally is better. I think that, it'd have to be the championship game for them to play each other, but I want that matchup so badly.
Oh my God, dude, I want it. We need it. Purdue, UConn will be so sick.
Yes, Purdue, please just get there, because UConn, I feel like it's going to get there. We'll see. They're going to get to Iowa State fans, I'm sure, have something to say. Really rowdy online Iowa State fans. I don't blame them. They're kind of just patrolling to see who's if they're getting their due respect. And again, I don't blame them for that. But yeah, Clingan, I guess, let's just say, like, well, what would you say, other than like the mobility and things like that? What are the key differences between them? I think the first thing is that, like, I feel like, who do you think is the better lob threat? Because I feel like Clingan is a little more agile as a lob threat over the top in the pick and roll. You think that's true?
Clingan.
Yeah. So back to the basket game, he's pretty similar. I mean, he's a little more dynamic, I would say, in his back to the basket game. Would you say that's true?
Clingan or Edey, you're saying?
I think Clingan's a little more dynamic in his back to the basket game. I feel like Edey's kind of like, I'm going to get to that righty hook, or I'm going to drop step if I'm going to my right side. I feel like he's a little more flexible, a little more limber. And also, I guess the other thing too is just like spacing capability. Like, Edey's free throw line mechanics are better than you would think. You and I remember you and I talked about, like, I'm seeing him shoot a jump shot. It's just a thing you're never going to see really in a game setting because he doesn't have to. But Clingan has shown some flashes of, like, maybe someday he could get some of that going, I feel like.
I don't buy it with Clingan. I think he's just a non-shooter who wants to shoot. He's been below 60% from the line going back to high school. Edey's a 70% free throw guy with soft touch. I think Edey's the one I would bet on having a reliable spot up three before Clingan personally.
Yeah, I guess if you're saying, like, which one is more likely, the result of that doesn't equal, like, one of them is actually going to do it at the next level. Even if Clingan is more likely, it's neither of them are probably going to do it, and that's okay. I guess I don't know. So you're still leaning Clingan over him, though, you would say, at the end of the day?
Yeah, Clingan for now. And I think also here's the part of it as well. Think of circumstances, consider situation. Clingan, and as a sophomore, is a far different player than Edey was as a sophomore. Edey has taken many years to become a serviceable defender. Clingan is already a game-changing defender as a sophomore, so we can split hairs with some of the offensive stuff. Defensively, it's clear as day.